live button.
Lights up bright, dope, Campbell Stadium is alive. Seminoles rise and fight to survive. Helmet gleam under that blazing sun. Florida State where champions run. Seminole sideline 365. Feel the roar, we're coming alive. Garnet and gold in the battle we thrive. This is our house where legends arrive. Turf torn up under Seminole feet. The war chant pounds to the heart's own beat. Chop through the noise like a storm in the sky. 2025, we reach for the high. Seminole sideline 365.
Welcome back to Seminole Sideline 365. My name is KB, and with me, as always, is the old man. How's it going? We got a lot to discuss tonight. We had the show earlier in the week. If you missed that, we discussed our final group of the preview shows in terms of the offensive side, which was the offensive line. So if you haven't caught that yet, catch that tonight or this weekend. But tonight, we're switching to the opposite side of the ball, the defensive side, and we're going to go through the other side of the trenches, the defensive line. Give our thoughts, opinions there, what we expect, talk about some of the newcomers and our projections for this group heading into the 2025 season. But before we get into that, old man, anything you want to put out on the general news-wise or talk about before we dive into that?
Yeah, great. Had a wonderful, memorable, exciting trip to Cape Cod over the last 3.5 weeks, with family. And it was great, had a great time. The weather was fabulous, and to get out of the Florida heat, for that length of period of time was also a great gift. Got home. Got back to Tampa. I'm at the Tampa studio. I'll be back in my home studio tomorrow, but everything's well, really came home kind of refreshed and ready actually to get some football. I'm turning my YouTube TV back on. It's time. Summer's over. It's time for some football.
Yeah. And that's why we're doing two a days this week. We're doing 2 shows this week because we realize that we are running out of time to talk and do these preview shows, and we still have to do our season preview or schedule preview show and go through our projections for the schedule. And so we're running out of time to do these week by week, and that's exciting because, as we all know, the scrimmage this past week happened this week. They're up in University of North Florida, doing their thing up there in Jacksonville. So there's some news and stuff coming out of that. So we'll see if that plays into our discussion there. I know there's been some quotes out about that, but talk about the trenches, and it is sort of a rebuild a little bit. You got some guys returning, but you have a lot of new faces. You got a new defensive coordinator. You got a new defensive line coach. Odell's taking a step back. He's still with the program. Obviously, you still see him, when on the sidelines, when you see pictures, he's still an ambassador of the program. I think he's still the title of associate head coach.
I saw that. And it showed some pictures of him like walking around the practice field, like giving guys, instruction, which is, it's okay. It's okay. I mean,
he's still listed on the site as the, associate head coach and defensive tackles coach. So he's still got the title of that. And he's now, he once again, I don't think anyone's going to argue with this. His history speaks for itself. But they did bring in, Pot Roast from Nebraska to bring his experience, bring his recruiting, and bring a younger coach into the fold, an up and comer, and see what he can do on that side of the ball. They also brought in obviously Tony White and his style of offense to see what he can do, bringing in the 3-3-5, and we'll talk about that. So what do you lose? What did we lose from last year? I think that's important to keep in mind. This was a defensive line group that I wouldn't say they were the reason we lost games, but they weren't the reason we won them either. I think when you look at the 2023 season, the defense was dominant. The defense, once again, wasn't always the reason we won, but it was a huge compliment to the offense. When they needed to stop, they got to stop. You look back at the ACC title game when you're down to your third-string quarterback and you need defensive stop after defensive stop. You need turnovers. You need takeaways. You had guys like Verse and linebackers all who could make big plays. You had it in the 2023 season. You had a ferocious defense that was capable of doing things when they needed to be done. Come 2024, you didn't see that. You were missing a lot of guys who got drafted, who lost, were out of eligibility. You lost the Fisk, you lost the Verst, you lost Deloches, you lost, these key players on the defensive end that you didn't find replacements for last season. And I think it really, really did hurt you when you look at the statistics. You look at how many yards you gave up last season as a team, and you were a middling defensive team last year. You ranked in the bottom third, I believe, overall in terms of you look at overall statistics on that side of the ball. So you're looking to, as a defensive line, reestablish that line, stop the run, stop big plays, and establish that trench side, because you want to take some of that pressure off your linebackers, which is a position group we'll talk about next in our next show. But that starts right there, correct? And we talk about who we lose, because you do lose a lot of players from last year's team. You lose Joshua Farmer, you lose Marvin Jones Jr., you lose, Patrick.
Well, I don't know if losing Marvin Jones Jr. is a big hit.
I know, but the big names, like I said, is a guy like Patrick Payton, who people loved 2 years ago.
He didn't do anything, though, dude.
I know, but people.
No, I don't think people.
I'm just talking about who we're losing. Who we're losing, first of all, and you're losing a lot. But like you said, it doesn't feel like you're losing a ton. Some people may have liked Joshua Farmer and what he was capable to do, but you do retain some guys like Daryl Jackson and Daniel Lyons, and guys like that. Daniel Lyons, who hasn't played a lot because he was stuck behind Daryl Jackson. Some of these guys, so the guys you're keeping aren't necessarily overachievers in my eyes. Gerald Jackson, I wouldn't say was overly dominant last year in his position as a starting nose tackle. And he's one of the few guys you bring back in a starting role. One of the few only guys you start who are coming back in a starting role. So that has to give you some pause and some concern if you're looking at this defensive line. And then all the new faces you bring in, Dante McCray, DeMonte Diggs, Jason Jenkins. You bring in, James Williams. You bring in 4 guys essentially to start competing for starting spots, along with KJ Sampson, who is a returning recruit who has had limited time on that rotation. So this is totally kind of a rebuilt starting rotation that is kind of piecemeal from across the country, and you have to have some uncertainty when you look at it. In a new defensive scheme in that 3-3-5. So what are your initial thoughts when you see the new names, you see the new defensive scheme? Do you feel better or worse looking at that going into this year? Well,
first of all, we may not make one of our loyalists, Mike Merrick. Mike, welcome to the show again, buddy. Always good to see you. Positive vibes, fellas. I'm not sure that you're going to get the positive vibes you may be looking for in that regard, but there are other contenters out there that tend to do a little bit more hugging and kissing. I think we do a little bit more reality opinions. You said losses. I'm not sure that there were many losses from last year that would help us this year, but I think Josh Farmer is probably the guy that the NFL had their eye on. But Azarie, right? The defensive back. I think he's got a good shot to make it there in the NFL. And I think he's making his presence known there already. Mm-hmm. But Josh Farmer, Azarie, those 2 guys probably would have helped this team this year. If they were on the team, they would be starters. They would have a lot of experience. So maybe those guys or losses. Maybe I'm missing somebody. But how about a guy like Alex Mastromanos? I don't even think he got drafted. I think he was
what
undrafted.
What are you talking about? We're talking about defensive line now.
No,
I don't know where you're going to the kickers.
But I just said as a defensive type player. But Jones and Payton, they won't even be remembered. They won't even be remembered 3 seasons from now. I mean, they're gone. No. I mean, Jones, he's on his 3rd team now. Okay,
They'll
so
only be remembered if they go their new team, they blow up and,
yeah,
and they do something amazing. That's the only way they'll be
yeah,
remembered.
they're not.
They're not
I
doing
don't
something
see
amazing.
that. I'd be shocked. I would be really shocked. So from that standpoint, uh, there's not substantial losses here that can't be overcome. You hit on it. You hit on it. Gerald Jackson is the returning stud, but Gerald Jackson is still unproven. I'm sure there's going to be a ton of NFL eyes watching Gerald Jackson all season long, not only on his reps, his rep counts, his energy, his ability to stay in the game, not take too many breathers, and his ability to dominate at the I think he's going to be playing in the middle, the nose tackle position. He's 6'5", listed at 335 pounds, and is probably the best known, most aggressive lineman on this football team right now. Daryl Jackson, this is his money year. This is his money grab, and he knows that. So he's well motivated. No one is going to question his motivation. This is it. He's a redshirt senior. So this is it. Okay. So I agree. He is have to lead this defense. He has to lead this defense in a number of categories. In his career so far, I think at both Miami or at Florida State, he's only had 1 year at Florida State, or just the 1 year at Florida State, he has 3.5 sacks. But he's not there to really get sacks as much he is to control the center in this new defense. Control the center, control the two guards, and likely he's going to have to fight through two people. So he's the key to this defense. Then you got KJ Sampson, and I'll let you talk about him, and Dante McCray, who look like right now could be the co-starters on the depth chart.
Yeah, I think the thing that you said is that we need Daryl Jackson to stay healthy, and we need him to command double teams. We need him to basically collapse that middle, especially obviously on passing downs, but we need him to control that middle to command double teams to free up some of these weapons on the edge. And we need KJ Sampson to step up this year. He's had very limited experience as a recruit, as a homegrown player, a guy from high school that stayed with Florida State and kind of developed in the program. But you look at his experience, you look at his impact. It's been negligible at best, with 15 total tackles in 2 years, which is fine. It's a guy he's been part of the rotation. He's been kind of a backup, but this is the year we expect a guy like this in his third year as a player. He's got to start to contribute. But that can be scary because it's sort of an unknown. But what I say is that we need Gerald Jackson to be commanding in the middle, because that is going to free up guys like Dante McCray and James Williams.
And the linebackers.
And the linebackers, but specifically those ends or those hybrid players to kind of operate in this 3-3-5 offense. The 3-3-5 really is built for those kind of hybrid speed type players to do their thing. And that's really going to be to allow those guys to operate and to make big plays in this new style of defense. Now, looking at, and that can be kind of, that I think that will be one of the biggest questions mark, is that, can he be that space eater? Can Jackson be that space eater? Can he be solid against the run? And can he bring pass rush productivity consistently every single game against some of the best offensive lines in Clemson and Alabama and Florida?
Yeah, the big five games. The big five games. Yeah,
that'll be the big thing, because we need him to make those offenses respect him, those offense line respect him, so other guys can do their thing. Now, looking at other things, is James Williams. We've talked about him. We talked about how big of a recruit he was, and this is a guy that at Nebraska, he was kind of that edge player that was on pass rushes. That's where you got exciting to see him in those one-on-one moments where he could kind of look to blow past a guy one-on-one, and that's only going to be available if Daryl Jackson does his thing. So I'm excited to see how he looks against some of these better quality teams, if he's able to make an impact. How they'll utilize him, I'm assuming they'll be very similar to how they utilize him at Nebraska. I know I think they were trying to get him a little bit bigger so they could utilize him a little bit more. I think he was a little undersized at Nebraska, but obviously he was a younger player. So I'm interested to see how they may change the way they kind of use him across the field. But once again, they brought in guys like McCray. They brought in guys like what's his name? Like DeMonte Diggs. They brought in, they still have Jaden Jones. They have guys on this field. They switched Amari Williams over to that kind of hybrid position again too, because this defense, this new style of defense, prioritizes speed and agility and the ability to move between line and kind of that middle zone to follow guys around and to kind of move around quickly. Now, where that can hurt them is you can get gapped up the middle. You can get gapped on the run. And that's going to be concerning for Florida State. That's going to be a concern of mine, obviously, is watching this new style of defense. Is one, do they have a full understanding of this new defense? Do the new guys that are being brought in, because you are bringing in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 new faces into this defense on just the defensive, or 4 just on the defensive end side, transfer-wise. And then that's not to talk about freshmen who, people are expecting potentially Kevin Wynn, this big, well-developed freshman, to potentially get some playing time. We're not even taking into account freshmen who are competing for playing time. How are they getting into a new understanding of a new college defense, a more complex college defense? How are they understanding of that? So how will that learning difficulty impact game one when you're going against a well-talented team? You're not getting to warm up against Middle Tennessee State this year, or like we did 2 years ago. So we need to take in consideration there may be some operational errors here early on in the game, against Alabama, but those operational errors can't turn into big plays. And so they got to find, it'll be interesting to see how much they've installed of this defense, because a lot of these guys have only been here for 3, 4, 5 months, right? So I'll ask you that. Do you think that this installation of a new defense is going to cause problems for Florida State in the first game?
Yeah, I think there's going to be some hiccups. Okay, I think without you saying it, I will say it, and you don't have to agree with me. First of all, to answer your question, yeah, I think there's going to be some hiccups. I just think there will be. I would much rather see them not try to install the entire season defense. I'd rather them keep it a little bit, I don't want to say simple, but effective. Sometimes you take away guys' abilities by making it so complex that they're having to think, and then react. And you know what, Tony White, and I put out an X the last day or so. When Tony White, I was watching an interview from the defensive coordinator, Tony White, and he said, you know what? The guys who are going to play, I'm not along these words, he said, the guys who are going to play are the guys who make plays and we see it on tape, whether it's in practice or whether we see it in games. If you can't put it on tape regularly, you're not going to get on the field. I know he said those words. You won't get on the field, which I like to hear. That's the type of interview. That's the type of coach I like to hear from. So he's an old school guy. If you don't do it in practice, you don't do it in the games. If you don't understand, you're not going to be out there, period. I think Gus Malzahn is going to operate that same way too. Now, but there will be hiccups. Here's the other hiccup. This defense, despite hype about who's coming in and what they've done and everything, and I'll give my reasons, I don't think it's overhyped. I just think it's unproven. Not the defensive scheme, but the players themselves. There's not a lot of proven D1 statistical experience from the guys we're talking about here. If I'm wrong, I'll accept the challenges from our viewers, or I'll accept concrete examples from yourself, KB. Let's talk about Darrell Jackson. Not really proven at this point. The NFL is looking for that proof this year, and he's going to get double teamed a lot. So his excuse can't be, well, I'm getting double teamed by the center and the guard. That maybe that's his job, just to hold that front. Okay. And maybe if he gets that done, then that's what That's what, remember, Derek Nottie from the Kansas City, he's still playing there. That's kind of what he does. KJ Sampson, unproven. Dante McCray, the Western Kentucky. Now, back to KJ Sampson, 6'3", 309. Very talented, hearing good things, but he hasn't really played a lot of football at this level. Dante McCray, defensive end, Western Kentucky. He's a junior transfer, not a long track record yet of proven ability. Stop me if you think I'm wrong at any point here. Now, wait.
Stop you. You said stop you. So.
Okay. Well, just be specific on McCray. Where am I wrong on Dante McCray? Show me the numbers. I know the numbers. They're not impressive. Not impressive.
The last 2 years, he's had 96 total tackles, 40 plus solo tackles, and 3.5 sacks.
At Western Kentucky. And what are the? Who's he been playing against?
So now is it experience or is it quality experience or is it?
It's quality of experience. He hasn't done it really at a strong D1 level. Look, if you went and looked at the schedule they played the last 2 years, then. You know what I'm saying? All of these guys are going to get big, or should get big stats in game 2 and 3 this season.
So should they not have recruited him then? Should they not have recruited him?
I'm just saying he's unproven in my eyes.
But unproven is different than not a lot of experience. Okay, those are two different.
No. Well, call it whatever you want. We can do a word salad thing here if you want tonight. I rather not.
Well, you just said he had no experience before, so I think you need to be careful with what words you use.
Unproven at this level, at the D1 ACC level. Okay. And so you could make the argument. Well, so was Jared Verse. So was his running mate there in the middle. Those guys are great. And they're off to good careers. Daniel Lyons, not really proven experience at this point. Kevin Wynn, he's a freshman. Heard a lot about him. There's a lot of hype on Kevin Wynn. No proven experience yet. Okay, now here's the one. Jason Jenkins, listed as a D tackle, 6'6", 270. He's the redshirt junior transfer from Tennessee. He's been injured. He's being nursed through camp at this point. He's still not in action. He's probably going to be here 2 seasons. I'm thinking, did he really have substantial proven experiences at Tennessee? 2 seasons, 13 tackles, 2 sacks, injuries. And then the final one, and then you're going to run with this. Is James Williams, who came over from Nebraska, where he's a known quantity by Tony White and what's his name? Hambone?
Pot Rose.
Yeah, Pot Rose. They know this guy. He's listed as a defensive lineman, but he's playing what they call a jack linebacker or a switch position. He could go up on the line. He could drop into coverage. Mm-hmm. From everything I've heard online about him so far, they've been on him to be more than just a pass rush specialist, which means he's not a strong run support guy.
Yeah.
Okay, which we found out with Patrick and the other guy, that left, Jones and Peyton. James Williams at 6'6", 259, redshirt junior. I expect he'll be here 2 seasons. Had 7 sacks at Nebraska. He was a junior college guy that came to Nebraska for 1 season. Had 7 sacks. A couple of them, I'm not going to say 2 sacks against Rutgers is nothing to sneeze at. I'm not sold on him yet as a proven guy who can disrupt the game. I hope the hell I'm wrong, and I hope the hell I'm wrong early against Alabama. Okay, yeah. That's so I think the defensive line must prove themselves. They don't have a lot of experience, and I hope there are not a rash of injuries at this point. The coaching staff, including Norvell, they're throwing out all the names of every guy doing well. That's to keep everybody motivated. So that's my statement, and we can discuss that.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on some points. I think these guys, they brought in guys, transfers that have game experience. Not all of it's made equally. Not all of it's against high-level SEC, but obviously Jason Jenkins is SEC, Tennessee, but he's coming off an injury, and you're hoping to get more out of him. It wasn't like he was an always SEC first team kind of guy, but there is high upside there. James Williams, we saw flashes of it, needs to get better in run support, and that's what we're hoping to see as he gets bigger. We talked about McCray, obviously, playing at a higher level now, but he's shown that he has ability. It's just got to apply to the ACC level. And then you got kind of Diggs the same way. He's got to show it, at this level. With Florida State at the ACC level. So you brought in a mixture of guys from top tier conferences that had lower amount of experience overall, but obviously they play at the level. Then you brought in guys from lower conferences who have a lot of experience, but now have to prove it at this level. So I like the approach. You weren't obviously coming off a 2-10 season going to be able to get the top tier guys, but I think you needed a lot of the guys, and you got what you needed. I feel like.
Plus, you could get them at a bargain price.
Oh, well,
you could get them.
We don't know what.
Well, I
suppose
can't say
that. You can't say that. You don't know.
No, but I suspect you got them at a pretty decent price.
Yeah, and you need a lot of them. So, and then like you talked about who we return. I think the big thing is we do need to get a lot. And we're expecting to get a lot from return. We need to get Daniel Lyons. He needs to have a sort of career year for himself. I think we're going to need to get contributions out of guys like Amari Williams and Kevin Wynn. One of those two is going to need to step up and contribute this year for us to be successful. That is in my opinion.
You mean James?
No,
what did you say? Williams?
Amari Williams or Kevin Wynn is going to need to contribute this year. They moved Amari Williams to a recent because he fits the 3-3-5.
Yeah.
And because he's a hybrid, kind of his body's built for speed and he's got good hands and he's kind of like a James Williams type a little bit looks like.
And I like Amari Williams. I do.
Yeah, but I think either that, a younger guy like that, or Kevin Wynn, a newcomer, is going to need to contribute, especially Kevin Wynn kind of being in that rotational with Daryl Jackson at the nose tackle, most likely, it is something that's going to be critical. Because once again, I don't want to over talk about this, but in the 3-3-5, it's it's crucial. I mean, the run defense, you are so susceptible to the run that if you don't have, because you only have 3 down linemen, right? So you need to be overpowered at the point of attack. And if you're going up against the larger pro-style offenses like a Clemson or an Alabama, some of these defenses that are gonna be larger than you and trying to run it down your throat
and wear you out. Yep.
Yeah, and you need a guy that can rotate behind Daryl Jackson. You need anchors in the middle. You need anchors in the middle, and you need someone who can contribute behind Daryl Jackson. And heaven forbid he gets hurt, you need someone that can fill that gap and can take on multiple blockers, or occupy multiple blockers. If Daryl Jackson can't do that at all this year, which I believe he can, but if he can't, we either need someone who can step up and can, or if he can't find that person, we're screwed. In this
I'm not sure we have that person, to be honest.
I think Daryl Jackson can. I think Daryl Jackson can do that. I think he.
No, I'm saying if Daryl Jackson can't do this,
well,
I'm not sure we have a person who can step up.
Well, I'm hoping we will, but that is one of the unknowns.
But would you agree with my premise then that the defensive line looks like they have good potential? They look like they have good potential, but there's no way to know what that potential is going to be at this point.
I would agree with you, and I think what they will be, once again, I think there'll be 2 things. I think it'll be interesting because I think they will be better at more of the blitzing packages this year in the 3-3-5, because I think they have more athletes on the defensive line than they do have true defensive line built guys. I don't know what how. I just feel like they have more kind of hybrid players on the defensive line this year. And once again, calling to the 3-3-5. So I think they'll be better at more of the pass defense and creating confusion and blitzing than they were last year. but I do think that we're going to have many issues in
Yeah,
running. And that's due to one, the inability to potentially rotate out Daryl Jackson as he kind of gets tired and facing very good offensive lines this year. And two, it's just it comes with confusion of understanding the complexities of 3-3-5 and having younger guys and new guys in this defense. I think we're going to be super susceptible, but I think the guys that they brought in are tailored for this type of defense. They just have to be able to understand it and execute it for doing blitzing packages and defending the pass. And I think if they pick it up quickly, I think it could play really well in Florida State's hands.
Well, yeah, I that's a good summary, and I otherwise you would present overwhelming evidence to me that I was wrong in terms of I think it's fair and I think it's reality to say the defensive line is unproven. Okay, so here's going to be one of the keys. It's going to be hot as hell August the 30th at 3:30 in the afternoon. You'd almost rather maybe it's raining a little bit to cool things down. However, it's going to be hot as hell. So rotation is going to be critical at game speed. Okay, it's going to be critical. So you can't wear guys out. So you're going to go at least 2 deep at every defensive line position during that game, and sometimes maybe 3 deep, depending on heat exhaustion, injuries, and so on. I think you're going to see a lot of the names we've talked about getting onto the field, whether they're ready to play or not. And they're going to get to evaluate a lot about these guys against a top 10 opponent, period. So you're getting a hell of a test. But also on the other side, the other team, Alabama, is going to be rotating people as well. Situational packages, which you talked about, is probably going to be the key. I think Tony White is probably good at this. Tony White and his defensive coaches, and he's got a pretty good staff he's got 2 ex-head coaches there on the defensive side. I think he's got a good knowledge base of how they're going to unfold this. And I believe he's smart enough to understand where his weaknesses are and how guys are going to get rotated. And I tell you what, I can't wait to the press conferences afterwards to at least hear Tony White, okay? Because he doesn't have too many filters so far when I listen to him. He doesn't call people out by names, but he said some guys he expected to step up during practices have not. And now, is he using that as a motivational tool? Perhaps.
Yep. The one thing I'll note too is that I've talked about the complexities of the 3-3-5 and how there could be negatives with the run defense vulnerability if guys don't step up or understand the defense, stuff like that. I do think there are benefits to it by default. I think that with the guys that they brought in, the guys that they've recruited to this, and the guys who are already on the roster. And you kind of mentioned it with different packages. 3-5 by default, it allows you to kind of disguise what's happening pre-snap, right? You can present different looks, guys on the line, guys who are going to back up into coverage, guys who are going to blitz off the edge, stuff like that.
Right. Confuse the quarterback. Confuse the blocking at the line of scrimmage. Yeah.
And when you don't have a bunch of 300-pound linemen, and the guys that the guys we're talking about, Amari Williams, James Williams, DeMonte Diggs, these are guys who are pass rushing specialists who are built with quickness off the edge. And that's why they brought them, because they can do both. They can beat you off the edge quickly, with a move, or they can drop back and cover a space. And so I think that is going to be a benefit. Also, in the ACC, when there's a lot of pass-first teams, that's going to be a huge benefit. So it'll be exciting to see how that plays out. Once again, you need to understand the packages. You need to understand there needs to be good communication, right, of what's going on, especially as offense is audible and things like that. So that will be critical of them understanding these things, as a lot of these are new players into this system. But hopefully guys like James Williams, who have played in the system, can be captains of it and call guys out and make sure everyone's on the same page of music as they're going through it. So I wanted to call that out.
Yeah, I think James Williams, who's worked under the system. We're not talking linebackers tonight. Stephon Thompson, who's also understands this system, I believe. Some of the is it Stephon Thompson or Elijah Herring who understands, who came from Nebraska. It's one
Stephon
of the two.
Thompson.
Yeah, Thompson. These guys are going to have to help the other guys who don't know it, because when the game action starts and they don't know what the opponent's going to do, it's going to be critical. And I think we're going to learn a lot in game one, and they'll have 2 games after that to try to get this thing worked out.
And for this cohesion factor too, I think there is a benefit when you have the defensive line coach and the defensive coordinator coming from the same school. There's glue from day one. There's I want to do it my way, this way. There's same sheet of music too, same playbook, same kind of terminology. That helps too. So even though there's new players coming in, there's page one from the get-go, which is positive.
We should mention another name too that I'm hearing, and he's been a guy that's been around the program a long time, and that's Jaden Jones. He's a redshirt senior. The guy's had some injury issues, but he grew up wanting to be a Florida State Seminole. He's put his heart into it, and I've heard some you're hearing a little bits and pieces about guys, and it doesn't mean a lot. But I hope he can make his way onto the field and have a productive season for himself. He's put in a lot of hard work.
Yeah, and he is, I believe, one of the guys that Norvell called out as having, Tony White called out as having being one of the best players on the scrimmage. So once again, you don't know, but this guy, like you said, that's been hurt. He came from JUCO, was one of the best players in JUCO when they recruited him, but hopefully a guy like that can bounce back and have an impact, because you're going to need someone on the edge who can be an impact if Daryl Jackson commands that pressure.
Exactly.
So I have a couple of questions for you before we wrap up this segment.
Yep.
And we'll go rapid fire through this.
Yep.
Which transfer acquisition do you think will have the biggest impact on the defensive line this season, and why?
Which transfer on the defensive line?
Yeah, will have the biggest impact.
I'm hoping it's a guy like Jason Jenkins from Tennessee, but given the experience in this defense, I hope to see a big step up by James Williams.
Okay. And why? And why do you?
Because I think he knows the system. He needs to take a step. At this point, he knows the system. He knows the coaching staff. They can put him in the right positions to do what he does, right? And I think Tony White's going to do that. He knows where guys should be at the right time. And I think James Williams could have the biggest impact besides, of course, Daryl Jackson, who was a transfer, but not a transfer in this year, obviously.
Well, this may answer my next question, because I was going to say the term breakout candidate gets thrown out by the media and stuff like that. So I was going to say, if you had to pick a player who you think would exceed expectations on the roster, so it could be a transfer, it could be a guy already here, but would exceed expectations, who would that person be?
Exceed would be probably KJ Sampson. Okay. It's a good, they're waiting for him to really become the monster that he should be. Daryl Jackson, there's already high expectations about this guy for the last 2 seasons. He really has to meet the expectations at this point. But to exceed and surprise people, maybe a guy like KJ Sampson or Darrell Lyons. But KJ Sampson is the guy to look at.
Yeah, I think Daniel Lyons could be a guy that will be crucial to this as well, to that middle of the field, middle of the line. With the new scheme, and you kind of mentioned this earlier, but I want to confirm it. With the new scheme, how do you think Tony White will rely? Do you think he'll rely on a small group of starters, or do you think he'll go deep into the lineup to keep guys fresh? How do you think he'll approach game one?
I don't think he has a choice. I don't think it's a choice at all. I'm sure his staff is planning a massive rotation, at least 2 deep. Okay, at least 2 deep, depending on how the game goes. How many minutes do you want your defense on the field? We hear that all the time.
Yeah.
If we're not producing first downs on offense and driving the ball and so on, your defense could just overheat. It really could. I don't know if you've ever been a game in Tallahassee in the afternoon in August. It sucks. Okay. It's hot as shit just sitting around at a tailgate at a barbecue. Okay. These guys are going to be playing on a field in pads. It's going to be over 100 degrees. Hydration is what did Willie Taggart? What we weren't properly hydrated.
They're cramping up.
We're cramping up. We weren't properly hydrated. Well, Willie, that's your problem. Okay. So hydration, I'm sure the week before is people are going to be pounding water and they're going to be hitting the urinal because you've got to hydrate. It is so hot here. I walked outside today, my first day back from Cape Cod, where we had jackets on, and it's hot as hell. And the humidity, it was over 94 degrees today, and with the humidity felt like 102. So it's going to suck, man. But Alabama's practicing in it, and we're practicing in it. You don't want to be practicing in the air conditioning unless lightning forces you in. This is what you're going to be playing in. So I expect there'll be a pretty good rotation. And if a player is ready, unless he's proven he's, like he doesn't understand what the hell's going on, he's going to get some rotation just by the weather itself.
So you talk about hydration. I had to pull.
I bet you did. I bet you did. You're good at that.
Someone posted this on X, and I thought it was funny. So this guy goes, bartender at the pool asked why I was drinking water. He goes, because I'm a good teammate. And then he pulled up this South Carolina hydration chart, football. and it says, this is championship hydration level. And it's the selfish teammates, the dark yellow, brown, blatant disregard.
For urine chart. You're in chart.
You are a bad guy.
Yeah, you're in chart. Yeah. That's pretty funny.
All right, couple quick ones I have here.
Which is actually factual.
It is. That's I mean, I think
it really.
I mean, that was a real I mean, you can tell that was somewhere in the locker room in South Carolina at some point.
They should maybe we should do pee test on Thursday before the game. Because I'm telling you,
I'm sure trainers or the nutrition staff. Something.
They should be, because I'm telling you, 3:30. Good luck to all the fans, but the players.
Yeah, it's gonna be
rough.
So we talked about Florida State is going to be facing some of the best offensive lines in the country: Clemson, Alabama, Florida, Miami.
Some
of the top ones, 4 or 5. What if you had to put one thing on the defensive line bulletin board? What is the one thing that you would say to them that they need to do to be successful in those marquee matchups?
Smash them in the mouth, out physical them in the first period. If you can smash them up, play hard-nosed football, and be physical, which sounds as a cliche. I feel like I'm saying a cliche, nice. but it really is true. In the first play of the game or the first series of the game, if you show I'm coming for you and I'm coming hungry, you got to win that first couple of series on defense. Okay. If they're rolling down, if they roll down and even they chew up the field, they chew up 4 or 5 minutes, and even if they walk away with no points, you know what that offense goes, the Alabama offense goes up and says, we got these guys.
Yep.
We got these guys.
Yep.
You have to have that offense walk off after maybe third and punt, and then now they're thinking, oh shit, these guys are better than we thought they might be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So we got to get a good start on defense. That's probably more important than a good start on offense.
I agree. Last 2 questions. Of the young guys on this roster, Jamari Flagg, Kevin Wynn, no, he's not young, but Amari Williams, Grant Feld, you have a lot of young guys, KJ Sampson, Daniel, of those guys, Kevin Wynn, of these young guys on the roster they brought in for the defensive line, who do you think they needs to step up or will have the biggest impact this season? I think none of them. Or if you think none of them, none of them.
I don't think the coaching staff is looking at any of them to really count on to win games. I think they want to bring their development along, because you're always playing for next year as well as this. Kevin Wynn is probably the guy I'm hearing the most about. Okay, I don't have media access to the coaching staff or anything. Kevin Wynn, I think Kevin Wynn is the guy. Okay. I think Kevin Wynn is the guy. He's the most highly taunted guy at this point, freshman coming in. I don't think they're going to redshirt this guy. I think he has a chance to play. I don't know what he's doing in camp, though.
Okay, that's fair.
That's
We're
an
not here
honest.
to make-
That's
yeah, we're not here to
reality.
make- yeah, but
We're
that was
not here. I'm not here to sell subscriptions, which we don't do anyways. And let me say this:
Okay.
we never ask for anything like that. I see all these other sites sell 50% off this and that. All we ask for, if you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe, hit the like now and then, even if you don't like it. But just do that. It helps motivate us a little bit. I hate asking for it. But you know what? Maybe we should do it more often. But no, I think Kevin Wynn is the guy.
Okay. And then last question is, obviously, you got Tony White in, you got Pot Roast in, whole new defensive staff. What do you think or how much pressure do you think is on the staff to basically perform immediately and turn this defensive line around and turn them into a top 25, top 15 ranked defensive?
I believe, and is my opinion, that they have probably the first 4 games of the season to pull this together, and they'll know then, without counting in injuries, who can play and who can't. And Tony White, as I said, quoted as saying, if you can't play or you can't put it on tape when the time comes and the lights are on, you're not going to be on the field. This is competitive. He didn't, if you're a senior, if a freshman's better than you, they're going to play. This is a competitive business now. And that's what he's trying to tell these guys. You have to earn your position. You have to earn your reps. If we don't believe in you, you will not be on the field.
Okay, but how much pressure are you putting on the staff to perform right away?
I'm not. If they lose the Alabama game, that's not the end of the season. How much?
But they could
pressure?
still perform well and lose. They could still, they.
Of course they could.
Yeah, they could hold them to 17 points and lose.
You could be competitive in every game this season and be 0-12.
Exactly.
I mean, that happens.
But you complained a lot about the defense last year and the defensive line.
Right.
How much pressure are you putting on Tony White in this?
I can't put a lot of pressure. I can't put a lot of pressure on Tony White.
Okay.
Because this line is unproven. If this was a very experienced, proven line, then I'd put a lot of pressure on.
But it was his job to get them to perform.
It's his job
to bring in those people.
get that. I want to see what happens after the first 5 games of the season. Okay. Because
but you don't hire a guy at a job to say, well, what
the hell do you want me to say?
I want you to say
what is your opinion? I want you to answer the question. Then I'm
putting a lot of pressure on him to perform.
What does that mean? Perform what? Do what?
To perform against Alabama, hold them to 17 or 20 points. That is my expectation. I hired a guy for a lot of money.
And win or lose. Does that matter to you?
Okay. No, that doesn't matter.
You're saying from a defense to keep the stats down and keep the score down.
To do their job, yes. To do their job. To create takeaways, to generate pressure, to sack the quarterback. That's their job.
And that's probably the fan reaction. I don't know. Let's say I'm thinking if they can hold the top 5 games on his schedule, if they can hold them under 25 points, I think we have a chance to win.
I didn't ask you that, though. I just said...
I don't know what the hell you're asking me.
I just asked how much pressure are you putting on him to perform immediately? And it sounds like you don't put any pressure because you think it's too...
Listen. I don't have to... We don't have to... The fans don't have to put pressure on this coaching staff. If you've
because they'll be fired.
Listen, if you've ever coached anything, they already have self-induced pressures to perform. Do you think Tony... Listen.
It's a question.
Do you think Tony White... Do you think Tony White wants to walk out there and doesn't feel pressure? He feels all kind of pressure. He's the new guy on the block. He's playing Alabama at home in the dope that's been renovated. He's feeling tremendous pressure to shut out every opponent. So I mean, I think I don't really. The question is not really that good a question.
Okay. Pressure expectations. It sounds like you don't have expectations of him because you say his roster's unproven.
I do have expectations. Of course I have expectations. I have expectations about winning games. So that means keeping the opponent down. But, you got to give a guy a couple of games to really get it gelled up. I expect it to be a competitive game. Is what I expect.
And I was saying for the season.
I would be disappointed. I would be disappointed if it's a shootout at 55-48. Then he hasn't done his job.
I wasn't talking about just for the game. That's the point you're missing. I was saying for the season. I was.
I have
about
high expectations for him to do a much better defense than last year when we won 2 games. That's my answer.
There you go.
That's my answer.
All right,
but
that's it.
Okay, but don't all the fans have that expectation? I mean,
no, I think some would say
what?
No. Some would say, well, we got to give him some time. We got to let him
I don't
players,
think
or
so.
he inherited da da da.
Well,
some
of
would
course,
absolutely say that.
Of course,
you
of
said
course.
that. You said that. You said he had an unproven roster. And it's
he
not
does.
You said
he
that.
does have an unproven roster.
Exactly.
Okay.
So you're putting less pressure on him.
You're
saying the expectations are lower, right?
No, I think maybe it's a tough question. Tony White he is a professional. He's well paid. His coach staff well paid. They want to provide a defense for this football team that's going to be successful and help win football games.
Can he produce a top 30 defense?
Number? No, I think if he's in the top 35 defenses, I think that's probably a big step up.
That's a huge step up.
Yeah.
Is that your expectations? Is that so? That's a
yeah.
That's
yeah. I would say I think that's a fair expectation to be in the top 35 teams in total defense in D1. Okay. I think that's a reasonable. And now I like that question.
Okay.
Just like our offense was dead last. Yeah. So Gus should be in the top 50. Let's say, but we're not talking about that.
So you're saying, yeah. So you're
top
saying your expectation, top 35. Okay.
Top 35 in total defense.
That's fair. Okay.
Right.
There we go. There you go. So if you guys disagree or agree with any of those questions, top 35 defense, standout players, stuff like that, breakout candidates, let us know in the comments or in the chat. We appreciate it. But I think we got through some good questions. We got through some good predictions. Once again, I think there is a lot of uncertainty on this defense with the new faces and some of the younger guys that we need to step up this season. But I think the 3-3-5 scheme is exciting. It's different, at least to watch. And I think it's going to bring some confusion to the offenses we face and a lot of high-powered offenses that we will face. But there's going to be obviously growing pains. So let's keep that in mind. There will be growing pains, especially against some of these better offensive lines. And hopefully we can get through those. The rosters will hopefully learn this defense quickly. But I will be expecting some growing pains. Any final thoughts from your end?
No, I think you and I had talked before the show that, there was an interesting interview from Freddie Stevenson with Jimbo Fisher. We're not going to talk about it tonight, but I think I want to tell all our viewers, we're going to probably put together a show live or pre-recorded about that interview and our thoughts on that, on that interview, and our thoughts on the mixed thoughts of Jimbo Fisher.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who is now a analyst on the ACC, pregame huddle or something like that?
ACC network or something, which will be good. He's a good speaker.
He is a good speaker. Now, listen, whether you like him or not, and we're not going to get into him tonight, Jimbo Fisher is a knowledgeable football coach and has a record that many coaches would love to have. Okay. And watch for this show coming up. We'll announce it on Twitter. We'll announce it on X. And obviously, if you're subscribed here and you hit the bell, you'll know when we're coming up and on the air. But you're going to see more of us, and we'd love for you to be a subscribed, loyal viewer here and join us when you can. We understand everybody's busy as hell. No, that's it. And then I saw tonight live, they had the Tom Brady statue unveiling in Foxborough up just outside of Boston. And it is a huge ass statue. And even Tom Brady said, most of the time you're really, really old when statues pop up, but they're having a preseason against your Commanders tonight. Yeah. And, it was, he said probably New York Jets fans, when they come out after a loss, they'll throw their beer bottles at it or paint it or some shit, but it's really well done.
That's absolutely true. Yeah, there's a big statue. So,
and I got my Boston hat on, not for him so much, but for He did. He didn't mention anything about Tampa Bay in his little speech. He gave a few jokes in there. But, he came down to Tampa Bay in what, 2 seasons? Was it 3, 2 or 3?
2 or 3
At 2 seasons and won a damn Super Bowl. So, shit, give this guy a hats off, because if you look at his NFL draft tapes, he was a tall, skinny, they didn't think he would do anything. He didn't think he'd do anything. He thought, I just want to get on the team. Shit.
Yeah.
20 some years later, this guy's unbelievable. He was unbelievable. Now, he had a lot of surrounding parts. Let's not forget it. And he says that as well, and good coaching. So,
yeah, absolutely. A couple of last things. Luke Pettibon got added to I believe, the Remington Award list.
Saw that.
Watch list.
And that's probably deserved to have him watched. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So congrats to him. And I think I think he's earned the right to be on that watch list, and because he's absolutely performed at Wake Forest, and that's why we targeted him, right? I think he was on the watch list last year at Wake Forest, and then he performed well, and he's on it again. So congrats to him. We'll be tracking that, obviously, and hopefully he performs the same way, because we'll need him to. And then also, as pointed out here, there was also, you can see other players. Tommy Castellanos on the Maxwell Award watch list. Richie Leonard is on the Warfel Trophy watch list. And then you got Gavin Sawchuk is on the Doak Walker watch list. So you called out, you believe Sawchuk will be the breakout guy for the running back room this year. So that aligns well there. And then Randy Pittman and Landon Thomas are on the Mackey Award watch list, which I believe is for tight ends. And the Manley Award for Mason Arnold, which do you know what that award's for? I'm not sure what.
The what?
Manley Award?
Mason Arnold. He's a long snapper, right?
It is sort of the best long snapper.
Yeah, he's a long snapper.
So yeah, he's on. So you got these guys to look out for, and obviously, if they're being recognized here,
And to you parents out there, you train your son or daughter, but your son to be a long snapper, and he gets really, really good. It's a quick way to get a scholarship to play college football and potentially a road into the NFL. And also because those guys are,
and not get CT at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Because they're kind of protected, in a way. So that is a great way to get to big money potentially.
Yeah. So congrats to all these folks. It's obviously great to have 2 tight ends on the Mackey Award list. So hopefully we're going to need, like we talked about earlier, if you haven't watched our receiver tight end shows, we obviously highlighted both these guys and needing them to have a big year. And so, hopefully.
And quick shout out to some guys who joined us in here. Mike Merrick, Island Boy, and let's see, Dagby. Always good to have you guys come in. We do air your comments. We want to hear your comments. And, let me tell you this last story, and we're going off the air. We said we wouldn't do more than an hour. So I'm in Walmart today, right? Oh, God. And we're shopping, right? Just listen. I have a shirt on.
Nothing ever starts good by going to Walmart.
Yeah, no. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I'm sorry if you want to save some money. But, I told you, where's the egg prices? Well, go to Walmart. Okay. You'll see they were $4.69 for a dozen. Okay, I had my shirt on. So I'm walking around, some young guy, he's unloading stuff, and I had a Tampa Bay hat on down here in Tampa. And I said, well, what do you think of Tampa Bay this year? He goes, I said, what about Trask? I said, they brought in Teddy Bridgewater. Trask was the quarterback at Florida. He's been there at Tampa Bay now 3, 4, 5 seasons. He goes, I never liked Trask. I'm a Florida State guy. So I opened the conversation. I said, hey, we have our own show, and, and blah, blah, blah. And he said maybe he'll join us or subscribe. But, it was funny talking to him about what he thought Florida State would do this year. And he said he's very hopeful. But you know what he said more? He goes, about your show, are you the type that sugarcoat everything and hype everything? I said, no, we're just the opposite. We're more in reality. It's raw and unfiltered, and we welcome you to the show. So whoever he is out there, I hope you join us. But he did. It was interesting. He said, well, I don't like to hear these sugar coatings and all that. So there is that fan base out there who wants to hear the reality and not be sold a subscription of hyperactivity and special rooms you can get into and special. If you sign up for the Silver Donkey Room, well, you will get this Discord and all this other bullshit, which you shouldn't be spending your money on. Save it for something else. You'll need it to go to the games. But you know what I'm saying. So
at least don't spend it now because nobody has access anyway.
No one has any access.
Nobody has insider.
Right. And when they do have access, I thought you were going to run a special clip there. When you do have access, they don't even ask legitimate questions. Sometimes they don't ask any questions. Sometimes the guys with access don't ask a single question.
Well, they ask questions kind of like.
Do you have one here? Here we go.
Juice, orange juice or apple juice with your breakfast?
That's one from the leading media types at FSU.
These are the types of questions.
You know, I get it. Yeah.
Please stop letting Aslan ask questions.
Yeah. I love that guy. In fact, I gave him a heart. Yeah, it's true.
But this is after Warchant asked, I forget, they asked Castellanos, was his bed firm or soft?
Yeah, no, firm, soft, or medium or some shit, you know? And instead of, you know, if that was Trump walking across, there would be 100 reporters yelling at him very relevant questions. They get so little access, take advantage of it. Okay. I'm not going to launch into my rant on that. And it's just, you know, we put in for access, but we were told, no, you're not nationally affiliated and all this other bullshit, because we would ask legitimate questions. Okay. Well, what's a legitimate question, old
you're
man?
Going in loops.
Okay, wait. What's a legitimate question, old man? Okay, Mr. White, Tony White, what do you believe is the weakest area on your defense, and how are you going to straighten it out? You don't think he would, you know what? His eyes would go wide open because they don't get questions like this. And that's a legitimate professional question. He might weed whack his way through it, but it's a legitimate question. Okay.
There you go. There you go. Well, thank you again, everyone, for coming out. I know it's Friday night, but we appreciate it. Whether you're watching this with us live or you're watching it recorded, let us know your thoughts on the defensive line, how they'll perform, who your breakout candidates are, and if you think they'll be a top 35 ranked overall defense this year. That's what the old man says his expectations are, and I think for us to win nine-ish games this year, we're going to need that. So hopefully
you said that. I didn't. Yeah, I didn't say we're going to win 9 games. You said
no. I said that. I think if we want to win 9 games, we need a top 35 defense. That's what I said.
Probably.
That's what I said. All right. Well, thank you all again. Have a great weekend. Stay safe out there. And for our next show, we'll obviously be talking about the linebackers. So hit the bell.
And we're going to have a special edition Jimbo Fisher interview with Freddie Stevenson comment show.
Well, comment show. We won't be.
Yeah, comment. We're not running the tape. You know.
But thank you guys for coming out. We'll see you all very soon. Have a great weekend. Stay safe out there. And as always, go Noles. Take care.
Go Noles.
Everyone. Take care.
Seminole sideline 365. Feel the roar, we're coming alive. Garnet and gold in the battle we thrive. This is our house where legends arrive. Every yard we take.